bitch off!
How welcome to my review of Detroit, directed by Kathryn Bigelow, a biodrama centered on the murders and the acts of police brutality that occurred at the Algiers Motel in the midst of the Detroit riots of 1967. So like I said, Detroit is directed by Kathryn Bigelow, who is known for bringing us such films as 2012's Zero Dark 30, as well as The Hurt Locker, a film that actually won Best Picture back in 2010 at the Academy Awards. Which is actually kind of funny because her ex-husband, James Cameron, also had a movie that was nominated that year, Avatar. And let's be honest, that movie was just... it was never all that great. Now, I don't always agree with the Academy's decision-making. Often, I actually disagree with their decision-making. But that's actually one of the times where I will say that I am completely on board with that. I think The Hurt Locker is actually outstanding. But what I find intriguing about Kathryn Bigelow is that despite her being a woman in a very male-dominated position in filmmaking, she has a very masculine, very audacious style. Even much more so than a great many of her male counterparts. And her style is very much present here for Detroit, with its visual muted tones, presence of a film grain. Then there's that documentary style of filmmaking with its handheld camera work, complete with the camera zooming in and out while filming. Also, there's this unapologetic rawness and grit to what her and her crew present to us on screen. Detroit is sort of told to us in 3 chapters. Chapter 1 being the riots, which is a bit like a war movie. Chapter 2, the events of the Algiers Motel, which is pretty much a straight up horror bottle film. And Chapter 3, the trial, which is a crime drama. Now, as far as the authenticity of Detroit is concerned, from what I could gather, of course, using the old internets, it's actually pretty accurate. And according to Melvin Dismukes, a witnessing security guard, who kind of serves as the voice of reason in the film and the person we identify with in the film, played by John Boyega, it is 99.5% accurate. And even going into the film not really knowing hardly anything about this particular incident, I found this to be a very strenuous watch, particularly because of the second chapter, the things that go down at the Algiers Motel. It's pretty rough. Now, I will save the rest for the film, but in case you do want to know how this all began, it all began after Detroit went under martial law, and a 17-year-old, Carl Cooper, was staying at the motel with some friends and decided to play a very stupid prank by shooting off a starter pistol, a toy gun, pointed at a bunch of law officials and National Guardsmen who were keeping watch nearby at an insurance building about a block away. What happens next is that the cops and the National Guardsmen track down the source. The cops bust up in the motel, pull all of its young occupants out of their rooms and into the lobby, shoving their faces to the wall, and then the cops proceed by interrogating these kids for the whereabouts of the gun and its user by using methods of physical and mental torture. And what these officers do, from what I've read and from what is shown in the film, it is incredibly vile and it's just outright sadistic. In this particular portion, it just made me angry, especially because it does feel so real in its presentation. And for anyone wondering, the movie never once comes close to making this big bold statement saying that all cops are bad. Because remember, only a Sith deals in absolutes. But really, despite whatever so-and-so wants to sell you, cops come in various forms of good and bad, and the movie does acknowledge this. Detroit does play to the relevancy of the racial climate of today in the US, but it does it without coming across as a one-sided piece of propaganda or something just to make tensions worse. It really feels that the ultimate goal here was to let the world know about this great injustice that these kids faced by these men and by the justice system as well. It serves to furthermore raise awareness of what's happened and what is still happening. And even though that it is attempting to capitalize on this tragedy, it doesn't feel exploitive or gratuitous. As for performances, they're all very strong, especially John Boyega, who I did reference earlier. But if I really had to praise only one person, it would definitely be Will Poulter and those eyebrows of his, because he just looks like an evil motherfucker with those things. He's good. He's actually too good Too good to the point where I fear for his career. I feel like it's going to be very hard for him to shake that image because it is such a daunting and horrific performance, and he is such a low-key actor. But I think it's definitely going to get some nominations for award season this year. At least I hope it is for him because, again, it's an outstanding performance. As for any last statements, this is a very intense film, as you could probably imagine given the subject matter, and this is one of the best movies that I've seen this year. However, I have absolutely no desire to ever see it again. It's not the most uplifting film, and it's a downer of an ending, so if you're going into the movie theater wanting to see more of a popcorn flick, this ain't gonna be it. So with all that said, I'm going to give Detroit a very light 4.5 out of 5. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on Detroit. If you've seen this movie, then do let me know your thoughts on it. And as always, I'm Colin Kirkland, and thank you so much for watching.